Hey guys, got a new video for you today. I'm looking at the book of Judges. I'm just going to be looking at chapters 1 and 2 for right now, but I would say it's a very good read. I think it's something worth looking into, so if you're looking for something good to read, I recommend the book of Judges for sure. But starting in chapter 1, we see here this is coming towards the end of the conquest of Canaan. Moses led the people of Israel out of Egypt through the desert and up to the gate of the promised land. Joshua took them in, and they all conquered things. And the book of Judges is picking up as the conquest is wrapping up. Most of the conquering is done or well underway. And we see in chapter 1, God clearly tells the people again and again, drive out the nations before you. Drive out all the Jebusites, the Hivites, the Perizzites, all the ites. Get rid of them. We don't need them here. And some of the tribes of Israel mostly did that. But most of the tribes either allowed the Canaanites to remain there or they made the Canaanites their slaves. Both of which was a no-no. But the Israelites still did it anyways. And in chapter 2, we start to see the ramifications of those actions. Chapter 1, we see all their actions. Chapter 2, we see the consequences to those actions begin to unfold. And throughout the rest of the book of Judges, we see it in much more detail. In chapter 2, verse 7, it says, "And the people served the Lord all the days of Joshua, and all the days of the elders who outlived Joshua, who had seen the great work of the Lord done for Israel." Skip down to verse 10, and it says, "And all that generation also were gathered to their fathers, and there arose another generation after them who did not know the Lord, or the work that he had done for Israel." So here we see a pretty clear picture that the people of Israel, by and large, are faithful to God as long as they have a faithful leader in charge. But once that leader, Joshua, dies, and all of his close friends, all the elders, and all the other people from that generation who was heavily invested in the conquest of Canaan, once they're all gone, this new generation isn't looking to follow God anymore. And we go down to verse 11, it says, "And the people of Israel did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and served the Baals. And they abandoned the Lord, the God of their fathers, who had brought them out of the land of Egypt. They went after other gods from among the gods of the people who were around them, and bowed down to them. They provoked the Lord to anger. They abandoned the Lord, and served the Baals and the Ashtaroth." And this kind of gives us a picture of how Israel's history really starts from that point onward. We see the people of Israel disobeyed God, and as a result, God kind of turned his back on them. They abandoned God. God let them do whatever they were going to do. And as a result, other nations came in and wiped out the Israels, oppressed them. The Israelites. These other nations oppressed them, put them in bondage and slavery. People wig out, they cry out to God, and God gives them a deliverer, a judge, someone who rises up and gets the people back on their feet. They conquer their enemies. Everything's great. They all praise God. But then when that judge dies, the people go back to their sinful ways, and the whole process repeats. And we see the fall of the people, the rise of the judge falls, the people fall, over and over and over and over again, all throughout the book of Judges. That's the whole book in a nutshell, but there's so much good stuff in there to unpack. But that's a very horribly oversimplified snapshot of the book of Judges. And we skip down chapter 2, verse 19, it says, "But whenever the judge died, they turned back and were more corrupt than their fathers, going after other gods, serving, bowing down to them, and they did not drop any of their practices or their stubborn ways." Again, this is just reinforcing the idea that these people were very hard set on abandoning God and whoring after false gods, the gods of the Canaanites they were supposed to drive out. When the people of Israel failed to drive out all these Canaanites, these people who did not worship or honor the Lord, as a result, it corrupted their own character. By not driving out the Canaanites, and they made friends with the Canaanites, there was intermarriage going on there between these nations, it caused some really huge issues. Because then all of a sudden the people of Israel start worshiping these Canaanite gods, and they forget about their one true God, the one who's really been doing all this wonderful, amazing stuff, leading them out of slavery and into a free nation. And there's some serious consequences to that. And when I read this, I'm personally challenged. I have to take a step back and go, wow, what areas of my life has God told me, you need to go to war against this. You need to drive this out of your life. Because if you don't, it's going to pull your heart away from me. How many times have I failed to drive out sin? Have I failed to drive out evil from my life? And it's caused this kind of ramifications in my world. And I really hope this challenges and convicts you too, that this will get you to take a look in the mirror and go, dang, I know I'm not supposed to drive out an entire nation of people, but there are other areas where sin can creep into our lives today that if we're not careful, if we don't actively go to war against it, it'll start to corrupt us. And this can be so many different things. It doesn't have to necessarily be a group of people. Maybe it is people. Maybe it's a habit. Maybe it's a hobby. Maybe it's behaviors, certain characteristics, things that you know are not of God, that you feel a check in your spirit. You feel God telling you, this needs to go. I encourage you, don't be afraid, don't hesitate to go to war against these kind of things. Take it from the people of Israel. It's not worth it to turn your back on God, not for anything. I think that's a huge part of what the Old Testament serves, is it's kind of an example of us. We can see so many examples of what happens to people when they don't follow after God, and we see a handful of examples of what happens when people do. People like King David, King Hezekiah, King Solomon, before he went all crazy and married too many women. We see so many examples of great godliness and horrible godlessness. And I believe that if we take these words to heart, it'll change the way we deal with our own version of the Canaanite issues. So, anyways, I hope that's something convicting and impactful to you. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you guys later.